We have a 27-year-old woman who enters one of our local hotels, walks up to the hotel clerk and checks just herself in. The woman has just a small bag of personal effects. She's all by herself and wants to check in for the night. The same hotel clerk that checked the woman in notices that as it grows into the evening and overnight, there are several people coming in and out of the hotel room that didn't check in with the woman that she met. She doesn't know why they're there or what they're doing, but she does note that she never once sees that same woman exit or enter that hotel room again. As the evening continues, the hotel clerk notices these individuals, but over the course of the night, there's nothing alarming that happens. There's no noises, there's no disturbances. Everything is fairly quiet until the morning. The next morning, housekeeping is going about their normal duties like they do every day. Goes to the room, knocks on the door, no response, so they feel it's safe to enter. So they go in thinking it's past checkout time and it's ready to get the room for the next guest. But that's when the housekeeping notices something's not quite right. As they enter the bathroom to begin their cleaning, they notice first a pile of clothes on the floor. And then once they step one step closer, they peer into the bathtub and notice that there's a nude deceased woman there. An understandably shocked housekeeping crew notifies management and they call 911 immediately. That's when our law enforcement and first responders will show up. Clearly this is a difficult, bad situation that needs to be investigated. So our law enforcement will secure the hotel room and then they'll begin to do the investigation. What we notice initially is that all the woman's belongings appear to be present. There aren't any signs of a struggle. There's no turnover of furniture. Her purse is there, it's got cash in it, she's got credit cards. Her cell phone is sitting right by the bed on the bedside. So there's nothing here that suggests foul play right out of the gate, although it's clearly a suspicious circumstances given the deceased woman in the tub. As the law enforcement continues to investigate the scene and question the workers at the hotel, the coroner staff begins to look at the body. What we notice right away is that there's a rim of soapy film around the edge of the tub, suggesting that the woman at some point was taking a bath and all that water over the night has drained out. And given the discovery of a young nude woman in a hotel room, knowing that there were visitors in and out that were now unaccounted for and missing, this case is going to be investigated as a homicide. Thorough scene investigation starts to reveal some significant clues. The first is that on the counter in the bathroom, we have some little light blue pills marked M30, which is typical of oxycodone tablets. With that, we've got a spoon with some scorch marks, some uncapped used syringes, a small baggie with some of that blue powder residue, as well as some crushed pills. So we've got large amounts of drug paraphernalia at the scene, which starts to give us a clue as to what was probably going on in this hotel room. After a complete scene investigation, as well as our interviews with the workers at the hotel, my death investigators collect the body and bring that back to our coroner's office, into the morgue, and prepare the body for autopsy. So I begin my autopsy. We're going to start by examining the outside of the decedent, looking for any abnormalities, any explanations, suggestions as to why this person might be deceased. In this particular case, we really don't have a whole lot. She's got a few colorful tattoos, a few scars here and there, but no injuries, nothing to suspect violence occurred. One of the things that we're going to look for in a case of a young woman is to rule out strangulation. So we're looking for bruising around the neck, or we're looking for bruising around the lips, the mouth, the nose, the eyes that suggest maybe some physical violence. And then we're going to look for petechiae, which are the kind of the telltale signs of strangulation, these small pinpoint hemorrhages that we see in the eyes or in the mouth. All of these are absent. Essentially what we have here after our early examination is a young, healthy woman with no explanation at autopsy why she's dead. What we do find at autopsy isn't necessarily violence, but we do discover a small puncture wound that's fresh. There's hemorrhage around it of what we call the left antecubital fossa, which is a fancy word to say, the crux of the left elbow. One of the things that we look for in people who are substance abusers. The other piece of this is There's a small amount of kind of pink frothy foam that's coming out of her mouth and nose. That when we see that in a young person is a strong indicator that drugs, particularly opiates or central nervous system depressants, may be involved in the death. The rest of the autopsy is completely normal. So despite our initial concerns, a dead woman in a bathtub in a hotel, unaccounted for people coming in and out of the room, a thorough scene investigation, interviews with potential witnesses, as well as a complete autopsy, give no indication that a violent crime took place. One of the pieces of evidence that we haven't yet explored is the decedent's cell phone that was there by the bedside. Examination of recent internet searches shows she was looking at things like, what's a oxycodone high feel like? How do you snort Percocet? Those are the kinds of things, obviously, that go along with the drug abuse that we saw at the scene, the drug paraphernalia. Examination of the text messages show that evening that she checked into the hotel room, she sent text messages to an unknown number, essentially saying, how can I score some oxy? In this case, we have essentially a negative autopsy, meaning the true cause of death wasn't able to be identified at autopsy. In this particular case, it's clear that the determination of the cause and manner in this death is going to have to wait for the toxicology. The report is back on our toxicology from our in-house toxicology lab. It shows post-mortem lethal levels of fentanyl in her blood. There's no other opiates, including oxycodone or other prescription drugs present. The little blue pills that we discovered at the scene, stamped and marked to look like prescription-grade oxycodone, are analyzed, and in fact are something completely different, turning out to be the source of the fentanyl. So in this case, it's clear that the customer is not always right, and in fact didn't get what she thought she was buying, and unfortunately, she paid with her life. The story you just heard is one of our early tragic tales of death by fentanyl. Since that case, we've only seen things worsen, from less than 5 fentanyl deaths a year up to well over 100 fentanyl deaths. It's important to know that a fentanyl death can strike almost anyone. Anybody who uses substances that were acquired illicitly or illegally off the street has a chance to have lethal levels of fentanyl. And in fact, 70% of the time when fentanyl is the cause of death, there are other drugs present, suggesting that the person didn't even know the drug that they were using contained fentanyl. One of the tragic facts about fentanyl deaths is people who die of fentanyl are on average 12 years younger than those who die of other substances. That means these individuals are earlier in their substance use history. They're newer to the drugs. They're earlier in their life, making the cases even more sudden, unexpected, and tragic. These are young, healthy people with a life ahead of them who only made one bad decision that ultimately ended their life. One of our main goals here at the coroner's office is to investigate these tragic deaths, learn everything we can, and to use that information to keep our community safe. I hope you've learned some things today. Join us again on Dead on Arrival and hear more tales from the coroner's office to learn about how you can keep you and the people you care for safe.